Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're tackling one of history's biggest questions. Why did Rome fall? But we're going to look at it through a really different lens. Forget about the gladiators and legions for a minute. Think silver, spices, and a balance sheet that was bleeding an empire dry.
So yeah, why did it fall? It's a puzzle historians have been obsessed with for, well, centuries. And we all have this picture in our heads of how it happened, but the real story, it's so much more complex and honestly, way more interesting. You know that classic image of barbarian hordes pouring over the borders? It's dramatic, for sure, but that's really just the final chapter of the story. It was just a symptom of a much, much deeper problem. The real cause of death? It was economic.
So, we usually hear about stuff like military weakness or corrupt emperors. But today, we're going to explore a completely different idea. That Rome didn't fall because it was weak. It fell because its entire business model, the very way it operated, had become just way too expensive to maintain.
Okay, so let's dive into this financial mystery. I mean, how does a global superpower literally go bankrupt? Well, the answer lies in this kind of fatal addiction, something that actually fueled its incredible rise, but also guaranteed its collapse.
This one idea just flips the whole story on its head. It wasn't a failure of courage or military genius at the end of the day. It was a catastrophic financial failure. The empire just plain ran out of money to pay its bills.
So think about it. How did a superpower pay for a permanent state of war on multiple fronts for centuries? The answer wasn't just taxes on land or its citizens. Nope, it was something a lot more exotic.
And believe it or not, it all came down to this one number, 25%. This was the secret fuel for Rome's entire military machine, the hidden engine that was paying for all those swords and shields defending the empire.
It was called the spice tax. A full quarter of the value of every single shipment of cinnamon, pepper, and Chinese silk that came into the empire went straight to the government. This tax on luxury goods was the invisible link directly funding the legions shivering on the frontiers.
I mean, just picture that flow of money for a second. The craving of the rich for fancy silks was literally transformed step by step into the silver coins that landed in a soldier's hand thousands of miles away. The empire's defense was being paid for by its taste for the finer things in life.
But here's the catch. A system like this creates a really dangerous, unsustainable loop. Because once you're hooked on that kind of money, you have to do whatever it takes to keep it coming in.
To keep that tax money flowing, Rome absolutely had to secure the trade routes. And securing those routes, which stretched through dangerous deserts and hostile lands, really only meant one thing. You gotta conquer more and more territory.
So this is the key point. Expansion wasn't just about power or glory anymore. It was about feeding this financial beast. They grabbed new territories for a quick cash injection. But this turned the frontier into this massive financial black hole, forcing Rome to push into lands that weren't even profitable just to protect the ones that were.
So you can see where this is going, right? What happens when the cost of running this machine, the cost of defending thousands of miles of trade routes, starts to be more than the profits you're making? Well, you hit a tipping point.
And here it is. This is that moment of crisis, frozen in time. By the 3rd century, the cost of just defending the trade routes shot past the tax money those routes were bringing in. The business model was officially broken.
So, facing bankruptcy, Rome's leaders made a pretty desperate choice. They started debasing their money. They literally began mixing cheaper metals, like copper, into their pure silver coins just to make more of them. It was a short-term fix that absolutely destroyed people's faith in their money long-term.
And at the exact same time, another huge problem was getting worse. The empire was buying so much silk and spices that more silver was physically flowing out of the empire to pay for it all than was coming in from taxes. They were literally bleeding silver.
And this is where it all starts to fall apart, for real. Because when the money finally runs out, all the things that money supports start to crumble too.
The final collapse happened incredibly fast, like a set of dominoes. First, outside pressures cut off the trade routes. Then, with the spice tax gone and the vaults totally empty, the government couldn't pay its soldiers. And let me tell you, an unpaid army is loyal to absolutely no one. The borders just collapsed.
And isn't that just the ultimate irony here? The very system of global trade that made Rome's military so dominant became the exact reason for its downfall. The minute that trade dried up, the war machine starved to death.
And that kind of leaves us with a pretty provocative thought, doesn't it?
If an ancient empire's power was so deeply connected to the stability of its global markets, how fragile are the complex economic systems that hold up the superpowers of today?